Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Earful Tower podcast, and this episode is all about places to get a drink. Sitting in front of me in the new studio is Sam Davies, a friend of the show who hasn't been on the show since, talking about the hoops he had to jump through to get French citizenship. Bonjour, Sam.
Bonjour, Ollie. So I'm new and improved French version of Sam now.
Did you see what I did with the bonjour? That was to make you feel at home. Did it work?
Well, I was listening to your recent pod about language fails, of which I think I recognised a story.
Hang on, stop right there. Here you go. There's €2.
Symbolic.
Do you know what that's for?
Is that all it was worth?
What do you think?
All right, we'll take it.
It's the €2 is for the story about Je t'aime, which people have probably heard. How did I redo it? Was that fair or?
Yeah, well, look, it's better than nothing. So, I mean, people have been dining out on that story for years now, and it's the first time I've actually received anything in compensation for it. So.
Yes. Would €2 get you a drink in any bar?
Maybe in a PMU bar, which are the very local bars where they sell lotto tickets and you can bet on the races.
And they have espressos for like less than €1 maybe.
Yeah, but there's a bit of a move for young people or even my age, like 40-year-olds, to go back to these bars because all the other bars are getting just too expensive. So they're the last remaining affordable bars in Paris.
Interesting. Let's I want to get into that, but before we get into it and the intro music and talk about you and what you do, I want to read out a quick review. That's how I start these episodes. This one is from Hellands, and they asked a question, which we can both chime in on here. They say, "Dear Oliver, please could you investigate why the bags are always too short for the baguettes in Paris?" And then it ends with 5 stars. Thank you for the podcast.
If you don't mind me going first, this is my suspicion. If I was to design the bag short, I would do it so that you can rip the nib off the end of the bread when you leave the bakery and bring it down to the bag size.
Yeah, so that's the idea. I think I've heard that's...
Was that actually it?
No. Oh. I think I like that idea, and I think that's the only socially acceptable time in Paris to eat on the go is when you rip off the nib, if that's really what it's called.
I don't think that's what it's called.
I think it's called... Is it called crouton?
Oof.
No?
Well, maybe.
I had this question ahead of time, so I went into a bakery before I came here, and I went in and I asked the question, and she goes, "I don't know." And I was like, well... Some people around the world might find it unhygienic, to be carrying around a piece of bread on the metro. I said to her, imagine if you bought a fish and like the head stuck out of the plastic bag. I was like, that would be weird. And she's like, yeah, that would be weird. She goes, all I can say is people who do take that baguette on the metro, for example, they often ask for it to be cut in half and tucked in, which I'd never even thought about before.
They don't want their bed bugs on their baguette.
That's a whole different subject. First, let's get into it with the music from Pres Maxson, and you're going to be listening to me and Sam Davies talking about places to drink in Paris. So Sam Davies, I think we set the scene. At the moment, you've got a social media page called A Great Place To, which will be linked in the show notes below.
Instagram page for now, but with big plans for expansion.
Taking over the world?
Taking over the world.
One bar at a time?
Yeah.
Cool. Before we get into what you're doing exactly and the bars that you've come with a list of bars, the bar scene in Paris. You said people are going to the PMUs. What are people going out for drinks? Is it just red wine here? What's the scene in Paris?
Yeah, look, it's a lot of red wine. I think that's what is confusing or not surprising, I think, for Anglophone people like Australians and Brits is that there's still not that much of a beer culture in bars here. It's, yes, of course you can get beer and there's beers on tap, etc., but the beers tend to be very generic in tasting, and I think the love of beer is still... It's much more common to drink wine in bars still, regardless, not even in wine bars, but in your average street bar.
I noticed I went to a ground control the other day and the wine bar hadn't opened. I was with a French guy and his wife and the beer bar was open. So I grabbed a pint of beer and I said, "Oh, you want to grab one? What are you waiting for?" He said, "I'll wait for the wine bar to open." He wouldn't even entertain the thought.
Oh, and also, drinking a pint of beer is I wouldn't say frowned upon, but certainly the French tend to prefer drinking half pints.
Yeah, I felt like I'd made a faux pas there. Yeah. But that's not for Australians, right?
You're in a safe space, Ollie. I won't judge you for it.
Okay, so the wine is still a thing. In terms of going out for drinks, is that a thing that we do here in Paris?
Yeah, absolutely. Like France is one of the things I love about France is that it's a city where you can go out every single night of the week. Now, for someone who's compulsively social like me, that's probably a bad thing. But you will always be able to find a bar that's open till about 1 o'clock.
In Paris, we're talking. Yep.
In Paris, we're talking. Compared to other European cities, even in Australia, where I was the other week, and bars in Sydney were closing at 10:30 midweek, which was in summer. So, yeah, Paris, it's really a special thing that they have in Paris, which I've come to realise.
Yeah, and it's in your, I was going to say French blood. It is French blood now. It's in your blood to be around bars because that's how you started out in France.
Oh, yes, good, correct. My very first job was at an Australian bar in Montpellier called the Airs Rock Cafe, which I still, to this day, after having worked at many jobs in France, it still has the dubious title of being the absolute worst place I've ever worked. I don't think it's called that anymore, but it was diabolical.
Why? Oh, what an interesting way to start your life in France. Was it Airs Rock Cafe?
Airs Rock Cafe. And starting from the name, which Australians stopped calling Uluru Airs Rock in the 80s or 90s because it was seen as disrespectful. So already at the name, I'm like, God.
So then fast forward 17 years, you're in Paris, and we're talking a little bit about bars and places that are cool. Your Instagram account is all about sort of like you go and you interview the bartenders, the cocktail makers, and you ask them for recommendations, right?
Yeah.
How are you convincing them to do this? Because it's not easy to get anyone to be interviewed ever.
Well, the origins of the page were that I was originally asking people in the bar industry when I'd go to, I don't know, New York or LA or Melbourne or wherever, where they would go to drink. So because bartenders and people in the industry always knew they'd always know the newest places, but they also know the funnest places or the places with the best food or the best ambience, or there's always a reason for a bartender to recommend a bar because they're in the industry, they know what's good. Yeah. And eventually I thought, well, I should make this list public because people were asking me for my tips. A second point was I work in the digital content business, and we were seeing the rise of artificial intelligence and regenerative AI being used to create content. And I thought, what's the only recommendation that can't be faked or created artificially is a first-person interview. So that was why I decided to do an interview-based tips. And you'll see in the name as a bit of a wink at that. It says Great Place Too, which is GPT. So that comes from ChatGPT. Very clever.
Doesn't surprise me with you, sir.
Works on many, many levels.
Yes. So they always start off by going like, here obviously, when you ask people to recommend something else. Whenever I ask like a coffee shop owner on this show or an author or something to recommend something, they always start with their own one. It's like it's programmed in them to do that,
Well, so I had a different approach, and because I'd worked doing content and copywriting for big alcohol companies, in the alcohol world, they'll talk about moments of consumption. So they'll be marketing a Aperol Spritz as something. This is a drink that you drink during the apero time, the aperitivo time, or a Bloody Mary. This is for brunch, or champagne. It's for celebration. So, I thought it's not useful for me to ask you, what's your best bar? What's the best bar in Paris? Because it's meaningless, really, because there's so many different reasons you might want to go to the bar. And so I took that premise and I basically came up with 4 or 5 key themes, recurrent themes that I ask bartenders. And then sometimes there's a few extra questions, but it's essentially, where do you go for date nights? Where do you go with mates? Where would you take your mother? Where do you go for a unique experience in Paris, in Melbourne, whatever? And then there's a few other categories too, but which I'll get to later. But that was the premise of it. So the idea is that you come out with a guide that's actually useful. You could be in Barcelona and say, I'm here with mates. Oh, I'm going to look at this Great Place Too guide to look at, here's a whole bunch of things that are good for mates. Or here's a thing that I'll get a unique Barcelonan experience.
Yeah, that's good because, I've noticed, even stepping away from bars for a second, a lot of the people that write stuff about Paris, 15 things you have to see in Paris, I often get the suspicion that it's like some intern in New York who maybe hasn't even been to Paris. It's not quite AI, but it's this the same thing. Copy paste. They see someone else recommend it. I guess it's the same for bars. So yeah, asking the bartenders for their.
Well, and to return to your earlier question, which I actually forgot midway through my response, but now I've been reminded of it. When you asked, is it not difficult to convince bartenders to do it? Well, because I had a few ins with the industry, I managed to get one or two well-known bartenders early on to do it.
Yeah.
And then when you can have that as your benchmark, you say, look, this top 50 bartender did it, and they'll be like, oh, I know that guy, and I know. And it's a really small, the bartender scene globally is still very insular, and people always, it's a really positive community actually. It's been really fun coming as an outsider into the bartender community because it's very positive, it's convivial, and people really look to boost each other and learn from each other. So
cool.
My response has been, I don't think I've had anyone ever say no. I mean, they might.
But you just drop the Ayers Rock cafes, name of that, and you'll get anywhere.
Well, I only do good bars, Ollie, so there's no chance that Ayers Rock Cafe would be on my list.
Let's give the proper shout out to the Instagram account because I fear I said a great place too, but it's just great place too.
So it's at great_place_2.
As in TO, and we'll link to it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But the idea is it's not just Paris, it's around the world.
Yeah, at the moment I've done, so far there's about 65 videos published with another 30 in the works that need to be edited. And those are everywhere from Sao Paulo to Stockholm, Brazil, Berlin, Spain, South Africa. So I did my first ones in Bangkok recently, which was really, really fun. There's a great bar scene in Bangkok, but I won't get sidetracked and talk about that. So I've really tried to have a really global approach, and I'm not just interested in the big popular destinations either. I've also there's a small town in Denmark called Aarhus, where there's just a fantastic cocktail scene, and I had the chance to meet an award-winning cocktail bartender there, so she gave me her tips. So, and I've got another one in Alabama, I think it was. No, Georgia. But yeah, and actually, I had people saying, there wasn't really any tips for these places, but we saw they were on yours, and so people were actually using them. In Georgia, it was a roller rink that one of the users went to, and she loved it. So,
but I bet there's no roller rinks in Paris. And I bring it back to Paris because I feel a lot of people listening will be curious for your tips in Paris.
Yes.
And you've come with, 10 bars, is that right?
Come with 10 bars. So,
and all with a subcategory.
Yeah, so I've just, basically it's just to show you how it's exactly, there's 10 categories,
including
bar.
Some new ones, I believe.
Yeah.
This is, okay, so let's go. I'm curious how many I've been to, and people at home will be able to, we'll have the list on the website. But also, I think people will be curious to have that little nostalgic feeling of the ones that they've been to before, as well as keeping their finger on the pulse of what's good to check out.
Well, only too happy to help. So,
thank you, Sam. Let's go.
All right. So the first category is date nights, which can be either with a partner or you're looking to meet someone. And for this, you'll be very familiar with Bar Nouveau, which is a new bar that opened a few months ago, or early 2023. And it's just got the most gorgeous 1920s interior. It's a tiny horse-shaped shoe bar, and the thing that always strikes me when I go there is that I always talk to people at the bar, which doesn't always happen in Paris. And so I thought, if your date's not going so well,
turn left.
You can turn left, all right, yeah.
So I've been to, that one was on Lena's bucket list of things she wanted to do in Paris 2024. So we've done that one. That's a good tip. Also, I love Art Nouveau. I'm curious if it's just, I assume it's designed in the style of Art Nouveau rather than
it used to be an Irish bar. So. No, but he's done a beautiful job. Remy Savage, and there's 4 of them who run it. But he's done an absolute beautiful job with custom lighting, and just everything is thought through to the nth degree.
And in the Marais too, so it's very central.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm 1 from 1. Let's go.
Mates, I thought what's always fun with mates is to play a bit of pool.
Sure.
Now, I'm terrible at pool.
We've played pool before.
Yeah. And you'll know that I'm terrible at pool because you were even giving me some tips for pool that didn't necessarily stick. And what's worse than playing pool in Paris is that a lot of the bars where you play pool, the table is just stuck into a corner, and you've got to contort yourself like
Houdini himself.
Yeah, I was going to say Houdini actually, and then I thought, is he actually even a contortionist? But anyway, you get the idea that it kind of you have to put your body into all sorts of weird positions. So, but recently I discovered this place called Billiard Mate, which is in Belleville, and it's an actual pool hall, and it has a Chinese dim sum service there as well.
Nice.
So it's really popular with the Chinese community. There's a big Chinese community in Belleville.
Yep.
And increasingly we've been going there. I think you've been there with me.
No, not been there yet.
I'm
That's because
sure
you don't
you were
invite
there.
me to the pool invites anymore, I bet.
All right. Well, anyway, I must have been roundly defeated by someone else. Actually, the last time I went there, it was with a writer friend of mine, and she'd never played pool in her life.
She beat you.
She beat me.
Yeah, okay. Well, that says a lot about your snooker skills there, Sam. Okay,
Yeah.
Billiard Mate. I like that it's got the... I'm thinking a lot... There's a lot of English creeping into Paris these days, have you noticed?
Yeah.
Mate, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
Is it pool tables or billiard tables?
Oof.
Did you...
They're blue. They're
Lots
blue
of-
in colour.
Was it like 3 balls or like 15?
No, 15.
Okay, so it's
Yeah, it's
pool.
15.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
good,
pool.
good.
Yeah, it's-
Okay. I'm adding that to the list. What else we got?
So the next one is, where would you take my mother or your mother?
Yeah.
Now, this is a funny thing that happened to me in May last year when my parents actually were in town, is that I had all these bars in the 10th arrondissement to go to, wine bars I thought they'd like, and my parents actually don't like drinking natural wine.
Right.
And almost every bar in the 10th and 11th now is doing natural wine. It's a very big trend. But to a lot of people who are used to drinking traditional wine, the natural wine can taste like, smelly sports stock or
It's sulfide, isn't it?
sulfide or
Yeah, sulfide.
sort of, and it's really it can be unpredictable too. Like the quality can vary from one bottle to the next. I personally don't mind it. It has a bit of a less of a hangover the next day, but my parents didn't like it. So there's actually an institution called Willie's Wine Bar.
Okay.
Do you know this one?
No?
No, it's a fantastic bar. It's been around for eons, and it's right on my favourite park in Paris, which is Parc Royal.
What, like Palais Royal?
Palais Royal.
Yeah.
down there.
Okay.
Yeah, Palais Royal. Sorry, maybe it's Palais Royal.
Yeah.
But this wine bar is just down there, and it's got a really good traditional, very comprehensive wine list full of classics. And not much natural.
The parents always a surprise when they come to visit, don't you think? You never know what you're going to get.
Well, yeah, and
My parents really like ground control.
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, increasingly, my parents, like Dad particularly, he's going a bit deaf, so he doesn't like anything that's too raucous or too loud. And in Paris, a lot of bars are actually really noisy.
Yeah, that's true. They're so small as well.
Yeah.
What else you got?
All right. Only in Paris is another category I have, and this is where you can throw up things that give you a distinctly Parisian experience. So there's one I've been going to ever since I first came to Paris 15, 16 years ago, and that's called the Baron Rouge. You know this one, the Red Baron?
Yes, 12th arrondissement.
So this is next to my favourite market, which is the Marché Allégret, which I'm sure you've covered extensively on your podcast.
Sure.
And the beauty of the Baron Rouge is that you can get wine that comes out of barrels, and you can also get oysters if they're in the... What do? They do the months... If it's a month that has an R in it, you can get oysters in Paris.
Is that is that what they say? A French month with an R in it.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, from May to August, no oysters.
Wow. Okay, that's cool. I like that. Also, I think with the 12th, a lot in the 12th, but especially the Marché d'Allegre, is very authentic, old school French feeling, don't you think?
Yeah.
Like that market, I was in that market the other day, and the Baron Rouge as well. Like it feels really like the locals go there. But in that market, I was there the other day, and there's the meat section. You line up at the butcher, and then you have to go to the little case to pay the lady that's sitting in there. It feels like it's from a 1920s novel about Paris, and it's still got. And there's a guy out there sharpening knives, and there's So the Baron Rouge fits perfect. Yeah, only in Paris. You got it.
I was in a market in Avignon once again with my parents, and the butcher said, "Where are you guys from?" And we said, "Australia." And he picked up the carcass of a rabbit that was in his window, and then pretended it was a kangaroo and said, "Kangaroo, kangaroo."
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it was
only in Avignon.
And the other one in Paris, which I haven't tested, but I only got wind of it this week, so this is breaking news. But there's a bar that's dedicated to Serge Gainsbourg. And that's in the 14th near his house. I have not tested it, so I don't know. But there's a lot of memorabilia and.
So maybe it's part of the Gainsbourg, the Fondation, the new one that's just opened.
It's definitely in that area.
We'll go there together. We'll go check it out together.
Let's do a live video from
content.
Content.
Yes.
Create some content.
Okay, good. There's a themed bar. I like it. Yep.
And not just any theme, but Gainsbourg.
Yeah, doesn't get more Parisian or French than that, really.
Yeah.
Divisive as he may be.
Yeah, I won't go on that one. The other one, another category I had during the World Cup was to watch rugby, and it's essentially what bars do you go to watch sports at? And the clear favourite is the Green Goose, which again is round this neighbourhood, close to your studio, and it's a really fun Irish bar. It's clean. It's been around for maybe 10 years. Kieran is the bar manager is very affable. Rugby enthusiast as well. And what you're wanting in a bar to watch sports, you're wanting a big screen that you can see easily. You're wanting preferably you're wanting the bar is streaming the sport via cable and not internet, because internet can be dodgy. And if you've ever been trying to watch a big match and the connections,
we saw that with the soccer.
Next door,
so
cheering
first. Yeah.
Oh, it's so frustrating.
I remember going to the Comptoir Général.
Yeah.
That's what it's called, right? Yeah. And the screens in different rooms were like 10 seconds apart.
Yeah.
And everyone just wanted to be in the other room.
Yeah, it's maddening. So that for me is a big and then you want friendly service that you don't need to line up and be concentrating on getting served rather than watching the match. And so the Green Goose hits all those points for me.
And bonus point is the guy that runs it is the brother of the guy who runs the coffee shop in the Marché d'Aligre. It all comes back.
It does. In fact, it's a whole dynasty of Irish landlords. Yeah. So his dad runs Patrick's, and I learned this the other day. Only recently, his uncle set up one of the original Irish bars in Paris called Kitty O'Shea's. Which leads, there's a spoonerism, but I'm not sure the G-ratedness of your audience. But
let's keep it G-rated.
Let's keep it G-rated.
People can figure it out.
Keep it Ollie G-rated.
Is it based on Kitty O'Shea? Okay, I can see where it's going. Okay, back to the list. Back to the list.
So watch rugby, you've got to go to the Green Goose. The next one is, where do you go to dress up? So where do you go to be fancy?
Yep.
And look, I believe in being fancy without, I believe you shouldn't have to drop $1 million to look $1 million. Mm-hmm. And so there's a bar that opened maybe a year and a half ago in Arts-en-Métier, which is one of my favourite suburbs, favourite areas of Paris. It's near Republic, and it's this beautiful old hotel that they've refurbed, and so it's quite luxury interior, and they have this gorgeous roof terrace. So in the summer months, it's just divine. You get this fantastic view over Paris.
Wow!
And then downstairs, you can eat. We've eaten dinner there on occasions, and it's very good. And even had friends who went there for New Year's Eve, and they had a blinder of a night, like really good food, dancing all night till 5. So Arts-en-Métier, Hôtel National Arts-en-Métier, is where you want to go to be fancy.
Wow. And I'm going to just repeat, there'll be people at home, I'm 100% sure of this, with a pen and paper writing these down. It'll all be on the website. It'll be linked in the show notes. Don't worry about that. Okay.
Yes, forgive my impeccable French, which goes back to now that I'm a certified Frenchman. I can't help myself but speak impeccable French.
You just said I can't. What did you say? Help myself? The English has gone out the window.
Yeah, the English is gone. The English had to make way for the French. Dressing down.
Yep.
You could argue that most bars in France are pretty dressed down in Paris. I came up with the Bar Orc, which is on the canal.
The Bar Orc, the one on Rue Paradis?
No. It's on the canal.
Okay, yep.
At the top end of the canal.
Yep.
And basically it's...
with a pétanque.
They have pétanque. So pétanque is a French game they like to play in the summer where it's like lawn bowls, but you throw... Or bocce. You throw these steel balls.
It's an old Roman. That game goes back forever. That's bocce in Italy. Or and so boule, it's right up on that's a nice part of town.
It's gorgeous.
Super underrated. That 19th arrondissement. That's where I used to work.
That's right. It's right next to that office where you used to be. But there exactly, and the best thing is that they just give you a set of bull that you can go and play. So you can you can go across the road and you're on the canal and you're playing.
I think you got to put down $5 or something.
No,
not even.
No. You just leave your driver's license or a deposit.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good tip.
And otherwise, if you want to dress down, what we do in the summer is we just get a bottle of rosé from the supermarket and sit on the canal.
Remember a corkscrew.
Yes.
The amount of people.
Don't they sometimes, don't some of the supermarkets open it for you?
Sometimes, yeah. But it's one of those things that, people who don't, it's one of the quickest ways to learn how to say, do you have a corkscrew? Because it's such a necessity when you're down by the canal. Glorious summer days. Okay, that's a good one too. What else you got?
So next category is summer. And I thought there's a bar or a venue in my favourite. I know I said my favourite park earlier, but my real favourite park is Butte Chaumont. Mm-hmm. It's built around an old gypsum quarry. And there's this bar called Pavilion Pueblo, which is a house, like a cottage at the base of the hill, and they've got a terrace out the front and out the back. And you can bring kids there. You can just sit on the big deck. They've got big cushions you can sit on, really low-key, really fun, and just there's nothing better than sitting in a park in Paris in the summer.
Yep.
And winter, I would say, so France is pretty good. Most bars in France are geared towards winter, but I reckon the English have nailed the English pub scene. And so I was pretty excited a few years ago when a new bar opened up called the Cambridge Public House, and they call themselves a cocktail pub.
Yep.
And so they recently made it onto the world's top 50 bar list. Quite highly placed. Don't quote me on the number, but I think around the 20s. But basically you can get excellent cocktails. You can get a decent pint. You can get a sausage roll or a pie, and just have really friendly service in really cozy. You can sit in Chesterfields, really, really cozy vibe. And it's right in the middle of the Marais too. So
I've been to this one and I agree that they're super friendly.
Yeah.
Like surprisingly friendly for bartenders.
They are.
And they'll ask you how your day's going and stuff, even if they're busy. That's what really struck me. They were running around crazy making cocktails. They're like, where are you guys from?
Yeah.
I was like, me? Yes.
Oh, you're talking to me? Hang on. I only want to spend money here. So the Cambridge is great. And they've got a really good sustainability focus too. So if you're interested in how bars and the nightlife, the drinks industry is approaching sustainability, this bar is really showing how it can be done. They for example, they stopped selling. They replaced their beef pies with chicken pies because they realised that they could offset 8 tons of CO2 by making that switch, because it's much better for the environment to raise chickens than beef.
Sure.
So they just think about things on this much more granular level about sustainability, which I think call it greenwashing or call it like the future. I commend them. I think they're doing a great job, and it's a great bar.
That's it. Was that the end of your list?
No, I've got one more.
Go on then.
One more, which I thought I was going to leave it open, and then I thought we should give a plug to. There's a category called the bartender choice, which is where bartenders would recommend. And this is a new bar that you'll be familiar with, and Lena definitely will be familiar with. And it's run by 2 Americans around the corner from where I live.
I know where you're going. Yeah, keep going.
And it's called Abricot, which is French for apricot.
Lena did the menu there.
That's right. I was going to say, so they support local artists with their menus when they have tons of menu
female
designs.
Artists too, I think.
That's right. That's right. It's very big bar in terms of promoting female or boosting women in the industry.
Yep.
Bartending is a very male-dominated industry, if you're not aware. And so it's just really friendly service, and they have this kind of American casualness and ease, which is really refreshing. And they're just fun people. Yep. They're bright. Bright.
And the cocktails are pretty, I'm no cocktail expert, but I remember talking to them. I was like, what have you got? And they explained, I was like, wow, there's a lot of creativity going on here.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just, often they just got they've got this changing menu with local ingredients. I don't know if I'm meant to share it. they got fig leaves from a local chef who's quite popular online. They went to his garden and got his fig leaves and used that to make something or other. Like this attention to detail, that was really cool, you know?
Yeah. Look, I think, and they have a, usually when you arrive, they give you a welcome drink, and it's just nice. It's like, they're very big on responsible service too. So, they will, instead of giving you a free shot, sometimes they give you some free popcorn or like free cookies to take home or something. So they're just really, really, it's a bar where you really feel that they pay attention to well-being and responsibility.
Nice. And shout out to them. They might be listening. Who knows? But Abricot in the hipster 10th, 11th arrondissement area.
That's it.
Sam Davies from Great Place 2. Once again, I'll be linking all the information down below. But thanks so much for coming in and sharing your information.
Thanks. I'll leave you with one last anecdote, which I learned from yesterday. I was speaking to an American friend she's just come over to learn French, and her friend had said, oh, well, all you need to learn French, you just need to know about the small horse and the big horse.
Go on.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, she goes, oh, it's easy. Well, the small horse is
yeah,
and the big horse is
that's really good.
So those two responses will get you out of most situations.
That's a viral TikTok video waiting to happen. Yeah. Maybe I'll steal that one. If I give you €2.
Yeah, that's €2 per story, Ollie.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. And just a shout out for everybody out there listening. You can find him Great Place 2. And in terms of the Earful Tower, check it out, theearfultower.com. Become a member, patreon.com/the Earful Tower. I'll be back with another episode next week. Sam, thank you very much.
Au revoir.